In today's video, we have the latest NHL trade talk looking at the Calgary Flames, St. Louis Blues, the Montreal Canadiens, as well as the Columbus Blue Jackets as Kent Johnson want a trade. There's some growing speculation on the young man's future with the Blue Jackets. We also have a Patrick Kane update. When might he start meeting with teams? Where is he rumored to be going? We have an update as well regarding the Ottawa Senators and their new GM search. Who are some of the candidates they may be looking at? News from the waiver wire, an update on net guards being mandated in the NHL, and a whole lot more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot of news to talk about, so let's dive right in and get started. I want to start with the good news on net guards and neck protection, and NHL players starting to embrace it. It might not be a huge number compared to the overall number of players in the league, but there's some players testing it out here today in practice, and some bigger profile names as well. And there'll be an influence on other players, but we saw Tom Wilson in Washington. Obviously, TJ Oshie actually has a company called War Road, named after the town he's from, and they actually manufacture some of the stuff too. So Tom Wilson, I believe, got some stuff from him, but Erik Karlsson was also seen wearing a neck protection in practice as well, and there was a few others. There's probably about 4 or 5 players that were spotted today, at least in practice. It could be a little bit more, testing this stuff out, trying to get used to it so they can start wearing it in games. A lot of NHL teams have started to order stuff. Normally they have to go buy NHL approved equipment, but according to NHL insiders, that there's such a high demand right now and such a big focus on this, and making it an important piece here, that they're, I guess, willing to let NHL players just wear, if you can get neck protection, just wear it for right now, and they will get things sorted out over on a long-term basis on which manufacturers they'll approve and whose equipment they'll be recommending for all of their players. But good news to see some players starting to adopt it. It's an injury that can be avoided. It's not just the neck protection. There is the Kevlar sleeves to protect like wrist cuts, and there's the socks as well, which can be helpful to prevent injuries to like the Achilles or the back of your leg and things. So there's all kinds of things they can do to protect themselves, and they really should be doing all they can to prevent serious injury or a fatal accident like we saw over in England. Some other news from around the NHL, news from the waiver wire. The Calgary Flames will place veteran defenseman Jordan Oesterle on waivers today. We'll find out at 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow if he's claimed or if he can be reassigned. The Flyers lost starting goaltender Carter Hart last night in the other NHL game. Looks like he's going to be out for a little bit. They're calling it a mid-body injury. Usually it's upper or lower, so I suspect it's like an oblique or an ab or something on that part of the area that's causing problems for Hart. We don't know exactly how long he's going to be out. They said it could be, they're hoping 2 to 3 weeks, but it sounds like it might be possible that it's 4 to 6. It just kind of depends. We'll have to wait and see where that goes. So, of course, they have Sammy Urson. They've recalled Cal Peterson as well to the NHL to replace Carter Hart on the roster. So, not good news in Philly. They've actually had a pretty decent start to the year, but losing their starting goaltender certainly not going to help. Now, as I mentioned as well, we have some more talk around the Ottawa Senators. Of course, yesterday was a very big newsworthy day where they dominated the headlines for all the wrong reasons, of course. But the news coming down from the NHL that they were losing a first-round pick because of the botched Evgeny Dadonov trade over 18 months ago. And then, of course, because of that, they fired Pierre Dorion, their general manager. Now, the owner, Michael Landauer, certainly was pretty hot when he was having his press conference announcing the decision to change the GM and let Dorion go. He made some comments regarding the league and how everything has gone down, and I don't blame him for being one bit upset. I think he had every right to. In his press conference, he made comments that obviously he said the sellers led him to believe that the situation regarding the Dadonov trade was not a big deal and there probably wouldn't be anything coming from it. Obviously, that's clearly wrong. A big first-round pick taken away is massive, and he said, I don't know about you, but a first-round pick is a pretty big deal to me. Of course, the Shane Pinto situation, he even talked about that, saying how frustrated he was that the league was investigating Pinto for several weeks before the team ever knew about it. And that goes for Pinto's agent, too, because I'm sure he knew. They only found out about it about a week to 10 days before the punishment came down. And he said at that point, that's when he made sure they stopped negotiations. But obviously, why did the league not do that? The league expects everything done by the book and expects to be, very transparent, and they need to do the same thing themselves. Like, he was misled in the sale, and I don't think he's going to, but he probably could take legal action against them for misrepresenting some things. And anyways, he's pretty upset about it. And of course, there's but one thing we did get confirmed today, because a lot of people thought he was going to get fined. And I'm like, can you imagine? They take away a first-round pick, they take away Shane Pinto for half a season, brand new owner, and then they turn around and do that. But Darren Dreger of TSN confirmed today that Michael Andlauer would not be fined for the comments he made in his press conference yesterday regarding the dismissal of Pierre Dorion. Now, another thing that could still possibly come down the road is another negative headline regarding the Sens, which we don't know, but there is still a pending investigation. We don't know the outcome yet on the 2018 Canadian World Junior team. That's been dragging on forever and a day as well. And there's a lot of wonder and speculation about Alex Formenton. Formenton is just suddenly not re-signed last year, and then he wasn't signed this year. He's been gone from the team for like a year and a half, and it's just weird that everybody wondered, well, could they just not come to terms? Well, obviously, and he wasn't the only player on that team, on his team from the World Junior team. Jake Batherson was also on that team, and it makes you wonder if the Sens knew something that the rest of us didn't, because Formenton basically got exiled, and Batherson has been on the team the whole time and promoted. So, clearly, it makes you wonder who knows what, right? Lots of talk around that. Now, I know today I was listening to the Real Kipper and Bourne podcast, and Nick Kyprios was saying, as far as he knew, that the Melnyk girls, who were owning the team after Eugene Melnyk passed away, before they sold, that they wanted nothing to do with Alex Formenton, and it was their direction not to sign him. So, again, that came right from ownership. It wasn't even a case of them not being able to come to terms. So it makes you wonder what we know and what we don't know. But again, we don't know that anybody from that World Junior team is going to be found guilty, right? What if, because the last we've heard is that there was speculation that the London police, who reopened their investigation quite some time ago, didn't want to press charges. Now, I don't know if they will or they won't, but that's what the latest intel was, that it sounds like the police didn't want to press charges, and if they don't press charges, then the league can't really do anything. And if that's the case, you think Alex Formenton should be able to get an NHL contract. And Kyprios has mentioned that there's a lot of interest in this player. He's a good hockey player. I don't know personally what he did or didn't do, but if he ends up, like, for example, if he's cleared of any wrongdoing, he should be allowed to play. Now, if he isn't cleared of wrongdoing, that's a different story. But, would the Senators, with being a whole new regime, and the Melnyks not being in charge anymore, and Dorion not being there, would they consider re-signing him? Would they trade him? It's really hard to understand, but that's going to be the other, I guess, negative piece of the puzzle that Michael Andlauer still might have to deal with. Obviously, this team was quite a mess before he took over. Now, as far as the new GM, who could it be? There's a trio of candidates, two of which have been mentioned by several people. One came from Elliotte Friedman, but according to Friedman's latest written 32 Thoughts blog, he mentions three names, one being Peter Chiarelli, Matthew Darche, and former Senator Captain Jason Spezza. Now, Chiarelli, of course, has been linked to this team for some time. There was belief that he did some advising with Andlauer on the bid when he was bidding. Of course, someone like Andlauer, anybody who's bidding on a hockey team or sports franchise is going to have several advisors that are working with them. And there was belief that he was involved in that. Now, I believe he technically has a job, I think it's with St. Louis, that he has it's a vice president role or something to that effect. But his name keeps coming up. But the Sens are in no rush to get this filled. They're going to take their time, make sure they get it right. They're going to calm the waters here right now, make sure the team and the players understand that they're in good, stable hands. And take their time to get this right. But Chiarelli has connections to the area, of course. No connections to the owner per se from working with him before, except it's believed he did some advising on the bid. But in the past, he did work for the Senators a long time ago. Not that anybody that was working there is still connected to that team on an active level right now, but he had a good run in Boston, not so good run in Edmonton. There seems to be quite mixed feelings about him as being a candidate up there. Matthew Darche has been with the Tampa Bay Lightning for some time, obviously Stanley Cup winner, certainly looked upon as being somebody who was more than ready to move into a GM role, just waiting for the right opportunity. Been director of player personnel, strong understanding of the salary cap. I believe he's very involved with their cap management there. Darche also interviewed in Montreal when they hired Ken Hughes. Michael Landauer was a part of those interviews because he was the minority owner of the Habs at the time. So he certainly has seen Darche himself in interview for that kind of role. So that could be a bonus. And Darche also played in Hamilton when Landauer owned the Hamilton team. So there is a connection there to Darche. And he's also somebody who can come in. He's bilingual, which is good. Not required, but it's good because there is a large French population there. And like I said, there is some connections to the owner, different capacities, and a well-respected up-and-coming kind of, newer executive to in a sense, a new, I guess you call him new in a sense that he's younger, but been in the league for a while now. And then Jason Spezza, of course, is currently an assistant GM with the Penguins. He hasn't held that title very long. He was only hired this past summer. He had worked, though, and what was it, 1 or 2 years with Jason Spezza worked with Kyle Dubas in Toronto as an advisor. So hard to say exactly how ready he is. A lot of people feel he will be a GM at some point. Is that now? I know that Andlauer and Staios have been fond and making a big priority to bring back alumni into the mix. I don't know that they would see him as being ready for that job, but I wouldn't be completely shocked if when the time comes, if they do, even if he wanted to interview for it. I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of former players, especially now with there being a new regime, new owner, are certainly more willing to be involved. Obviously, a lot of people had strained relationships, not only with owner Eugene Melnyk, but to a degree Pierre Dorion as well. And that's all kind of ready to change now. So we'll see. But those are the three names right now that are out there as being strong candidates for the Sens GM job. I don't think we'll see them rush into hiring somebody, though. Staios, I think, will have this under control as interim GM. I'd say for at least, wouldn't be surprised if it drug on at least a few months, maybe even longer. Hard to say. Maybe even the whole season, and they hire somebody before they get to the offseason. That wouldn't be shocking either. They could wait and see what candidates might be coming available later this year. Hard to say, but no rush by any means. Those are the guys rumored to be possible targets for them. As far as some trade talk around the NHL, Columbus and Kent Johnson. Is there possibility that this young player who's quite dynamic might want out of Columbus? Well, there's a little bit of alarms going off around there because he's recently changed his agent and he's now represented by CAA, which is one of the largest agencies, the head one being Pat Brisson there. He's been a healthy scratch a few times, getting some tough love from the coach, and it's just an odd time for him to change agencies. So there's some concern that maybe he's getting frustrated and might want to find himself getting a fresh start somewhere else. Now, the other connection here for some people would be that some players that have won it out of Ohio before, including Seth Jones and Pierre-Luc Dubois, also repped by CAA. So they have a history of helping some of these players get out of Columbus. So makes you wonder. And I think it's a little bit early to hit the panic button and to say for the fan base that Johnson wants out, but it's concerning to say the least how he's, I understand the coach is just giving him tough love to improve his game. But when you see an abrupt change in agency like that after things like that happen, it does raise some eyebrows. So definitely, I don't think it's anything we're going to see anytime soon, but certainly a situation worth monitoring for sure. St. Louis, Jacob Vrana is a player to watch. He had a great start coming over to St. Louis last year after he got picked up from Detroit. Scored 10 goals in 20 games. This year he's got 1 goal and 3 points in 6 games and already has been in and out of the lineup. Making $2.6 million. I mean, he's a streaky scorer. Obviously spent a good amount of time going through the player assistance program, but, appears to be, rectify whatever he was dealing with in that sense. So I don't know. The Blues, to me, are a team that's probably going to realize pretty quick that they're not going to be a playoff team, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Doug Armstrong tinker with this roster throughout the campaign. and move some guys that are, especially pending free agents like Verana, but could be an under the radar kind of player that gets picked up and goes on a streak again. We'll see. In Calgary, Calgary Flames continue to be in quite a mess. They lost again last night to Dallas after having a hot start. They ended up giving the lead back and ended up not being able to close things out. So again, the Flames are still a mess. They've lost, was it 6 or 7 in a row now? We had heard that all the contract negotiations for extensions are on hold, and we also heard today that from, I believe it was Eric Francis, saying that Noah Hannafin is actually the one who put a stop to negotiations himself. It wasn't the team. And it's believed that before they stopped, that he was likely going to be getting a bigger contract than Devon Toews in Colorado. Like that's what they were on track to give him. Now, Toews' contract in Colorado was very favorable. Definitely took a discount. I don't know if you'd call this a discount for Hannafin. Probably not. But at the end of the day, it's interesting. But there's also some speculation that some NHL insiders have heard from several executives saying that they think the Flames might send a message to some of their core players by placing a bigger name core guy on waivers sometime this week. Now, it's hard to say if they'll actually do that. And they have some guys that are hardcore struggling. I do wonder if there's any chance would they talk to and even see if they can move Kadri or Huberdeau. Both these guys don't seem to fit there. They're having terrible seasons. Again, this is obviously like last year. Kadri didn't do quite to the point that many thought he could do based on how he performed in Colorado the last few years, but he still was pretty decent. This year, he is not. He has 1 goal, and when he scored in the Heritage Classic, he looked shocked. It's just, I don't know. It's hard to say. Look, between him and Huberdeau, they look lost. And that line between him, Huberdeau, and Coronado has been called out by the coach a few times, saying like he needs more from them. They're just not pulling their weight. It's just hard to imagine like a guy like Huberdeau, how 2 seasons back was a 100-point player. Before that, he had seasons like in the 80s and 90s, 70 points, and now he's like nowhere near that. Like he's probably on pace to have the worst season probably of his career, or maybe even like since his sophomore campaign. He's probably going to be under 50 points at this rate. Like, that's not good. I mean, I know these contracts are very unfavorable. They have trade protection to boot, but would the Flames try to talk to teams and say, listen, maybe a scenery change is what he needs? I don't know that they're going to get too far, though, but Kadri and Huberdeau are just not getting it done. And I think it's fair to say at this point that the Flames have some big regrets on those contracts, even though it was Brad Treliving that signed them. He's not there anymore, but it just makes things look to what they inherited there after Treliving left to be way more of a mess than I think a lot of people ever realized. A lot of people blamed a lot last year on Daryl Sutter, and now that he's gone, they have a new coach, and some of these players are still not playing up to par. They're still not inspired. They're still not coming close to getting the job done. So something's got to give here. Growing speculation on the future of Patrick Kane, according to TSN in the Insider Trading segment. Darren Dreger says that he's likely going to start meeting with teams probably in the next 10 days. Obviously, there's some growing speculation on teams he may be talking to. He's expected to take meetings with a variety of teams, though, before he makes a decision and signs a contract. There's really no real sure speculation on what he's going to want for a deal, but many expect it to be a 1-year deal for, fairly cheap compared to what he's used to making before. But there was some speculation about the Maple Leafs again, because he was once again spotted in Toronto, but I believe he's doing some training and things there. I don't necessarily think it's a sign that he's, actively talking to the Leafs or meeting with their players or anything, but I mean, clearly he has a relationship with Austin Matthews. I wonder if it's something that, he'd want to go help them try to win a Stanley Cup. I don't know that for certain. I mean, the Leafs have been mentioned off and on in the Kane sweepstakes really since the summer. It's hard to imagine how they'd fit him in. They'd obviously have to clear some space. A variety of teams interested, including Toronto, but we've heard Buffalo, we've heard Dallas, we've heard the Rangers, and I think there's a couple other that are, expressing interest there as well. So we'll have to see. But again, we'll not talk about Kane and the Leafs again just because he's been in Toronto. We'll have to wait and see where things go. Darren Dreger tonight on TSN's Insider Trading also again examined and talked about the Habs 3-headed goalie monster, talking about how it's not really ideal for them to carry the 3 netminders between Allen, Montembeault, and Primo. But at this point, he says again, reiterates that the Habs are convinced 100% that if they put Primo on waivers, that they'll they won't get him through, and then he'll get claimed, and then he'll be gone for nothing. Then, of course, you have Allen and Montembeault. Montembeault would like to play more. He's a pending UFA, and regardless if he stays in Montreal or leaves, he'd like to build up his portfolio and show what he can do to get his next contract to be as good as possible, of course. And that's certainly fair and understandable. At the same time, Jake Allen has trade protection. He's arguably been their best goalie this year as well. So it's difficult to say what they're going to do. Drager says that it's not really clear exactly who's going to go, but it shouldn't be too long before they get to the point where they trade a goaltender. They've had a hot start to the season. It's really not fair to all three goaltenders. And if they're convinced that waivers is not really an option for them, then it's going to have to be done by trade. But who goes and exactly when it happens is a little bit difficult to say. But there's definitely a few teams out there with some need for goaltending help. So they'll probably talk to those teams and see where things go. But like I said, they're all in different spots here. Primo's young and inexperienced. Montembeault's a pending UFA. Allen has more term, more experience, a little bit older, but he also has trade protection and makes a little bit more money. So it's a little bit more complicated. I'm not sure the Habs have a clear-cut answer on who's going yet, but one of the three, it wouldn't be surprised if they're traded within the next 4 to 6 weeks, but we'll have to see where that goes. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.